So the first retreat I ever went on was a 5-day retreat at Omega with it was an MBSR retreat. Um, and this was not traditional Vipassana 10 to 12 hours a day of practice in silence. This it felt many times I um I didn't have this language at the time, or no, the way I would have described it at the time was sort of like, oh, this kind of feels like group therapy. Like there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of sharing feelings, people are crying. We're talking in between and like connecting with other people. We're doing meditation, but the longest we would sit was maybe 45 minutes, and then we'd discuss it and then do like group practices and exercises, journaling prompts. And the 5 days, the first day was a lot of like 10 to 20 minutes of practice here and there, peppered throughout a lot of conversation, different teachings on stress, settling the mind, etc. Similar to, if you've ever experienced an MBSR program, or like most of like the lay uh, um, the popular mindfulness programs out there, Search Inside Yourself, Mindful Schools type stuff, you're going to see like, okay, yeah, there's practice, but then there's also a lot of teaching. And so that was my first retreat experience. And then the next retreat I went on, and this tends to be part of the requirement for like, if you want to do that kind of teaching format, let's say in MBSR, they then encourage you to go into these other retreats, which is like 7, 10 days of silence, where you are meditating 10 to 12 hours per day. And it is more strict. And the encouragement is to maybe reduce sensory intake, the eyes, not making eye contact as much, not eating as much, even reducing sleep. That tends to be more true in a lot of the Eastern traditions. And so I was like, whoa, this is a very different retreat experience. And I went with my dad on that first retreat, 7-day retreat experience. And to not mince words, he was just like, fuck this. Like, this is, he came up to me after the second day, because we were in silence and we got there late. We didn't get to say goodbye. We just had to like jump into it. And he just whispered in my ear, he goes, how you doing with this shit? And I was like, I'm okay. It's like, I'm a little bored. He's like, all right, well, if you want to get out of here, just let me know. And he was just ready to jump ship. But previously he had done an MBSR type retreat as well with John Kabat-Zinn and Saki Santarelli before that, and had the most amazing, like heart opening, connecting, loving experience ever. So it was a total 180 when it came to the experience. And that's a really important point when you're considering crafting a retreat, especially if you're considering crafting it to a lot of different, making it open to the public and not necessarily practitioners who have a depth of meditation practice, because the austerity of the austerity of any sort of retreat and coming in for a structured period of time where the intention is to bring more awareness to your experience on an ongoing basis, that's a lot. It's a pressure cooker. And it's designed to be a pressure cooker. It helps you see what's going on in the mind more clearly. It helps you touch into emotions that you might be avoiding, and it helps you be present for more aspects of your experience. But as you know, as practitioners and teachers, there's not a linear relationship between awareness and happiness. If we define happiness as just positive emotion, it's often nonlinear, and sometimes it's a negative relationship. And so as we start waking up to these things, it can be intense, and so it's an important thing to consider when you're just looking at the format, and to recognize, and Sean, I'd be curious if you have differing thoughts on this, but that more meditation, like a more intense meditation schedule, is most likely going to come with a more intense emotional experience, or touching into more intimately layers of yourself. Would you agree with that, Sean?
Generally, yeah, I would. I think it depends on if there's like a theme, if it's like
Yeah.
a loving kindness retreat, then maybe not. Although, maybe more intense, like loving feelings, but shame can arise from that too.
Yeah.
I think it kind of depends, but generally speaking, I think the more we kind of limit ourselves, the harder we'll try to like rebel, and that's where we'll get to see that reactivity.
Yeah. Cool. Good. I'm glad to have a little back and forth, because I think the point I'm more making is that there's less of a pressure release valve when you're doing more intense meditation practice throughout the day. And a lot of what I am interested in these days when I am running larger retreats, so my in-person retreats, my in-person weekend retreats, which are like a Friday evening to a Sunday late afternoon, are somewhere between 80 and like 130 people. And in my online retreats, can be anywhere from 150 to 400 people. So there's a lot of people coming in with different experiences.